Welcome back to the In Basin Observations podcast, and I'm here today at the Thrive Energy Conference. Matt Wilks is our guest here today. Thanks, Matt, for joining us, and I think this is your second time on our podcast. You might have been one of our first guests as well.
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad to be back, and Bill, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, we got a lot of activity out here. We're excited about the conference. It's our 6th year of doing this, and we had a good crowd.
Definitely. No, it's always a great time. This place is amazing, and you guys put on the best show in energy.
We try. Well, all right. So we're here to talk a little bit about ProFrac. I think most of our listeners know this, but I'll just let you do a quick overview on yourself and ProFrac, and then we can get right into it.
So I'm Matt Wilks, the executive chairman of ProFrac Holdings. ProFrac is a holdings company that's got pressure pumping, sand, manufacturing, controls, and technology, as well as there's a bunch of stuff in it, chemistry, flow tech. But, it's all focused on oil field services, the oil and gas industry.
And most people know you guys from the pressure pumping side. So let's start there really quick. What are you seeing in the market from your vantage point? I know you guys have earnings coming up, so let's just make sure that we're all copacetic there. But let's talk about that on a high level, and then we can get into the other stuff.
Yeah, I think coming out of 22, it's been in fleet count's been dropping pretty steady, but I think what we look at in the market right now is it's found this a good stable flat line here, but there's been an incredible amount of attrition in the market.
Yep.
And a lot of horsepower is left. A lot of it's been tore up, but it's a lot tighter than people realize.
Yeah.
I think the slightest uptick when you start seeing fleet count increase, it's going to be it's going to be a surprise to a lot of people just how quickly it tightens up. There's not a lot of spare capacity on the market.
Well, and that's, like you said, that's been over years of that capacity kind of leaving the market, either being torn up or just kind of attrition over time.
Yeah, and then you see a lot more simul-fracs, trimul-fracs, and so a lot of times you see fleet count, and but it's not the same thing that it was in the past.
Right.
There's still a lot of zipper fleets, but with as many simul-fracs and trimul-fracs out there, it just takes a lot more horsepower to do to put a fleet together.
Yeah, and the other thing on that, again, we've talked about this for years, both at our conferences. John talks about it in the note. Efficiencies have become pretty big, especially on the pumping side. Talk a little bit about that and how, like you said, simul-frac, trimul-frac, tons more horsepower out there in terms of just doing a job. How is that kind of affecting everything, and then the efficiencies that come with it?
Yeah, when shale first kicked off, it was really experimental and trying to really perfect it. There was a lot of engineering that went into recovery.
Yep. And
over the last 10 years, the engineering has been more focused on efficiencies and supply chain exercises.
Yep.
And now that we're at that point of diminishing returns where you can't get 25 hours in a day, only once a year.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, it's getting 23 hours compared to 24 hours. How much more do you have to spend to get that last hour of the day? And is it a full cycle solution to where, sometimes you can get an operator can get a service company to pick up the cost of getting that last hour and going continuous.
Right.
But at the top of the cycle, when the market's tight, who pays for it?
Mm-hmm.
And will operators decide that last hour is really worth it?
Right.
And so from our perspective, this is a really exciting time because once you're at that 23-hour level, where do you go from there?
Right.
And it really brings back the engineering and a focus on recovery, whereas this is something that a lot of people in this industry hadn't thought about or worried about since at all in their career, or maybe early in their career. But it's good to get back to our roots.
So let's talk about that. The last hour, and then we're going to touch on the technology piece here in a little bit. But where are you guys pushing for those, I guess, that marginal piece and the recovery that you were just talking about? when you're out there on a job, your operator, client is looking at it one way. How are you guys looking at it?
So, I know we'll get into technology here in a second, but the way that we look at it is how do we deliver consistency, reliable equipment, and to be as thoughtful and as efficient with the equipment and the availability of equipment that we have. Of course, we want to use as few resources as possible.
Right.
But we also want to make sure that we've got plenty of redundancy, if and when it's needed. So we pay a lot of attention to cycle counts, failure modes, frequencies, and then, what is the cost and failure mode for every single component? How do we make sure that we can keep this as low cost as possible and deliver a consistent, reliable service?
Yeah. And so that's on the equipment side. So let's now go to this technology piece. Well, there's a couple of things here, but overall technology, again, I'd like to use the word efficiency because the technology can be another enabler of that. And that is really where you guys are starting to push the envelope in terms of what you're doing.
Yeah. There's technology has completely changed everything, and so we've because we're vertically integrated, we do our own controls. We've got standardized hardware and controls for our equipment. And so when you standardize everything, you've got lower SKU and less inventory, more efficient cycle times, and it's easier to train your people. But the really cool thing is when you start stacking technology on it.
Yep.
If I've got a failure mode that I can go in, the old way would be to go in and hit it with a harder hammer to beef it up. Let's get a larger crank. Let's get larger bearings. Let's get larger components. But really, all that does is it shifts the problem to another area so that it can fail in a more expensive spot.
In a bigger way. Yeah.
And but by going in and capturing data, we can go in and identify rather than snapped components and trying to figure out how to keep them from snapping. You can go in and figure out, okay, well, what's causing the torque?
Yeah.
What are these torque spikes and where are they coming from? And if I was to solve it with hardware, I would have to spend a fortune. I'd have to engineer it. It would take forever to get a solution. Mm-hmm. And then we'd spend 6 to 9 months to deploy it, touch every asset, and upgrade it. Whereas now we're identifying the root cause and the initial torque spike, mm-hmm. so that all we do is a software update overnight on every asset.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And so, again, you guys have so many assets. That adds to the level of efficiencies where you're saying, like, oh, we flipped a switch, we found out where this problem was, now let's move forward.
Yeah, and it's not just for our costs, it's also for the operator's costs. I think, with the Machina suite that we've put out, one of the modules that I'm really excited about is the fuel monitoring, because I think operators do a great job of capturing tickets and keeping up with the total spend at the end of the day for a pad, but they don't know where it goes while it's out there. I think some customers focus more on the price per gallon rather than how many gallons are consumed.
Yeah.
And with our software, we're going in and optimizing individual pumps and maximizing fuel efficiency. And if one of our competitors has the exact same setup, same equipment, same engines, we can get better fuel economy out of our equipment because of how we optimize individual pumps for fuel economy. And so the amount of fuel that you consume per hour on a single asset is a marginal increase when you're at 7 barrels a minute compared to 5 barrels a minute.
Yeah.
But the increase in rate is substantially higher than the increase in fuel consumption. So we go in and optimize individual pumps to maximize rate. It reduces our R&M, and it substantially reduces the cost of fuel to our customers. And that's before you start substituting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And even on that, so that level of transparency, are your operator customers, do they like that level of transparency as you guys are getting there?
We're still educating them on it and showing them these modules so that they can actually integrate it into their workflows.
Yep.
But there is a lot of excitement on it, and And we hope to continue gaining traction because it's hard to break people's processes and get them to utilize new data. But I think the data suite that comes with, the quality of the data that comes with our technology is
really
going to make that transition easy.
So let's talk about you mentioned it just a little bit ago, the Machina. You guys just announced this yesterday, I think. So we're February 25th. So you announced that. Tell me a little bit more about that software or the technology platform that you guys are using.
Certainly. So we went in, we call our frac automation ProPilot. And so that's more of an internal control automation, for our equipment internally. But Machina is a customer-facing solution, and it captures the entire workflow of a completions, of the completions process, from scheduling all the way to completing the job. And each module is focused on that workflow, whether it's just scheduling, the design, the geospatial data, so that you can pull in your MWD files, your mud logs, and you can see in a three dimensions, and reconcile it to your earth models, your geospatial data, so that the lateral. None of our customers ever have like corkscrew laterals, but if it was, you'd be able to see it there.
That's pretty cool.
But and then it also serves as a progress bar, so that you can actually see, like midway through a well, what's been completed, what stage you're currently on, and what's remaining. And the detail on it, you can actually get in and see individual clusters and really get a good idea of what's going on. And the reason that we did that is we wanted the geosciences to have access to operations in a clean environment, and to get more involved with the workflow without any conflict or disruption to the completions team. And then, but the main focus for us is how do we bring order and accountability to the entire decision tree from beginning to end, and log everything, to where what decisions does a consultant make on location that nobody knows about because it was in the data van, and how much of this is art because there's no accountability, and how much can we document, get change management, chain of custody, and bring this into a transparent format so that there's accountability and that we can turn this art into a science. So we've added even before we get into closed loop and real-time monitoring, we've got fleet configuration tools where an operator can come in and set parameters, like if we lose FR, the equipment will automatically cut the sand. And so what kind of rules or decisions would a consultant make on location that you can program ahead of time so that that's all taken care of right out of the gate? And how can we improve the decision process and utilize these automation tools?
So for something like that, you go to your customers, and are you showing them like a historical demo of what Machina would have looked like on a whatever XYZ job in the Permian, and then trying to convince them to use it going forward? Or how do you guys kind of go to your customers with this?
So we've got a lot of well history with our customers. One of the things we're careful about is we don't want to come in and be like, oh, you should have done this here, here, and here, and here. I mean, we don't want to expose or embarrass any of the people that we work with. But we want to make sure that they have the tools available to them so that they can make better decisions. We don't believe in black boxes. We don't pretend to know their business better than them, but we want to make sure that they have phenomenal tools so that they can make better decisions, and that they can be the judge on whether they made the good decisions or not. We think of ourselves as not the expert. We're more so the caddy. We'll carry the sticks. We'll walk alongside the customer. It's their game. It's their score. And look, if they're hitting really good, then we might recommend that don't use an 8-iron. You should use a 7.
Right. And then if they use whatever. It doesn't matter. Like closer.
I'm not really a golfer, so
the analogy works though. But Machina is that kind of enabler to use to help them make better decisions or make decisions. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the closed loop fracking. You talked about this a little bit. You guys made a big announcement with Seismos on this. Actually, let's talk about closed loop fracturing first, and then go to what you guys are doing there.
Yeah. So closed loop frac is being able to take real time data and respond to it, in real time. And in our belief that closed loop frac is should be focused on same well, real time data, same stage, same well, and capturing real time data feeds from downhole, and being able to respond to it to improve the well recovery.
Right.
And so, there's a lot of talk about there's a lot of people talking about closed loop frac. I think most of the solutions that you see out there are more so risk mitigation.
Okay.
How do we prevent offset wells or frac hits, or how do we avoid negative impacts to the well so that we can so that the operator can get consistent results? Our focus is actually how do we improve the well?
Yep.
And so you've got to have data from that well, from that stage, and to be able to identify when things aren't going exactly or treating exactly the way that the operator would like.
Right.
Because getting at 100 barrels a minute consistently, that's not the issue. Is every perf taking fluid? Is every perf getting sand, chemistry into it? And we can see that in real time now. And if it doesn't have a high perf efficiency, if it doesn't have a high uniformity index, then our automation can kick in based on the rules or the parameters that the customer sets,
right,
and automatically respond to it to correct it, but to correct it in the way that the operator is comfortable with. And that can be anything from a 5 barrel a minute increase, a 10 barrel a minute increase, or a change of viscosity to the for your fluid, a change to your proppant loading, or introducing a diverter. And you can have a series of decisions that are programmed. For example, if you're riding pressure already, it's going to be difficult to increase rate without overpressuring the well. So you can have your intervention procedure set to where if you're already riding pressure, it increases FR to drop the pressure, and then increases rate.
So something like this, what was the feedback loop on that prior to doing closed loop fracking? Like, the feedback loop had to have been much further than, 15 minutes or an hour or something like that.
Yeah. So from a feedback loop, the first piece is if you're treating 100 barrels a minute, most of the time nobody would say anything. You would just keep going.
Right.
And nobody would know that there was anything to correct. But now that we've got visibility and we can actually see the uniformity index, see the perf efficiency, now we know that 100 barrels a minute isn't good enough, and that if you've got a uniformity index of 0.6, then what can we do to get it to a 0.7 or a 0.8? How do we improve the quality of that 100 barrel a minute stage, and to raise the overall proppant places across the entire lateral on the entire well? And so that didn't exist before. So there was no latency or issue that could really be addressed previously. But now that we can see that, how do we respond to it? And that's where we hooked up the automation and said, look, we can take these decision trees and see when we're not getting, if an operator's not getting the treatment or the placement that they want. They can set rules that we'll follow ahead of time, so that when this condition's met, this sequence of design parameters kick in and correct that issue.
So again, on the customer side, when you say, hey, you've got all this ability to do that, the customer, are they kind of open to, hey, I want to set these parameters and put it into this automation, which is, I know you said it's not a black box, but it probably feels like a little bit of a black box at first.
I'm sure it does, but that was why we went in and we built the Machina suite to put it in their hands because we've had frac automation for a while.
Yep.
What we didn't have is something that existed out of the data van that you could actually put in the customer's hands so that they could see it, they could set the rules, they could interact with it. And I think that's the real game changer here is that it puts the controls in their hands and allows them to make those decisions to where they're in full control and custody of how this works. They set all the parameters, they set the rules. It's the same as them going to a consultant and saying, hey, when this happens, I want you to do this. Hey, don't do this anymore. We want this outcome. And so now they can program this on their side.
Yep.
And the more comfortable they get with the tools, the less involvement that we'll have. But early on, it's going in and training and working with these guys, making sure that they understand the capabilities, and then jointly pushing the potential, forward together. Because we've got, not maybe 40 wells, that we've done closed loop frac on at this point. But it's the challenge is going in and getting data.
Yeah.
So much of this industry is data driven.
Mm-hmm.
What is the efficacy of an intervention? That's what we call them, interventions.
Right.
When we run an intervention and execute a closed loop completion, what is the expectation? What's the result? And how much data do we have to support that?
Yep.
With only having a few wells, there's not a lot of data at this point, but we're seeing, without question, a substantial improvement to the stages, to the wells, but it's too early to really marry that up with production. What we do have is the relationship with Seismos. They recently published 2 papers. One had over 200 wells in it from Hess, and one had 150 wells in it from Diamondback. And in one formation, they were able to prove that there is a correlation between uniformity index and well results, where a 0.1 increase to uniformity index resulted in a 7% increase in well productivity. But in another formation, it was a 12% increase in well productivity. These are massive changes to, if just to put it in context, a 10% increase on well productivity for a frac fleet that runs all year long is about $100 million a year increase in free cash flow to the operator. A 10% increase.
Well,
and we're talking about a 0.1 increase being anywhere from 7 to 12% improvement to well productivity. And some of the interventions that we've already run, we've seen as high as a 0.1 increase to uniformity index.
So
so we're already seeing, the great outcomes, but we're at the early stages where we've only run a few different types of interventions. And the more we work with operators, the better the interventions will be.
Yeah, that's right.
And the better the outcomes, and the more data we'll have to support it and continue pushing that. This is so exciting because we get to get back to what made this industry great. Recovery.
Yep.
And to do that without sacrificing what the industry has fought so hard for over the last 10 years, where almost all of the engineering was focused on efficiency and go faster, get cheaper, and we've forgotten about what made this industry great. How do we get more?
Right.
How do we get more out of these wells?
Well, so that then what my question is, I think about all these gains in productivity, 10%, 15%. My mind goes back to, how do you get paid for that? as a service guy, that has probably been, like you said, for the last 10 years, probably one of the things that you've thought about a lot and struggled with.
Well, we love our customers. Our approach is to the completions team. A lot of times they're focused on schedule and budget, and so we can't skip these guys. We got to make sure that we get them phenomenal tools, that we make their life easier. We want to carry the sticks. We want to carry their golf clubs, and we don't want to tell them how to play the game. If they ask for some advice, we'll tell them, we'll recommend a club. Yeah. But it's really a 2-part sales process. you've got to have a product that, the team that you work with on a day-to-day basis wants to use, that they love, that it makes their life easier. But when it comes to well optimization, a lot of times the guys focused on schedule and budget aren't as interested in paying for more production. But we know that the asset managers do, and that there's a tech budget, and that this is in everybody, the industry's best interest to figure out how to get more out of these wells. And so we've got a two-pronged sales approach to where we focus on making high-quality tools that are easy to use, intuitive, and incredibly helpful. But then we get in and we work with the geosciences and the tech team, and we figure out how do we take this new technology, this new capability, and maximize the outcomes to improve these wells and the remaining inventory that we have, and can we use it to improve or increase the available inventory? There's one use case that we're really excited about, and this is where it gets into utilizing the automation and real-time data from offsetting wells. Is if you look at SWDs, the third bone spring. I was talking to one of our customers about the third bone spring, and I was kind of patting ourselves on the back. The best well on the Texas side of the Delaware in the last 2 years was a well that we fracked for them.
All right.
And I think it was 265,000 barrels in the first 90 days. Just an awesome well. So I was asking him about it, and like, why aren't you putting more sticks in the ground? Like, what's
this is a pretty good spot.
This is really good. And he said, well, the offset well to that only produced 45,000 barrels in the first 90 days because they fracked into an SWD. And the disposal wells is disposing of fluid into the formation directly above it. And so we went back, got with the engineering team. We think we can put a transducer on SWDs, transducer on any offset wells, any sort of communication you want to avoid. With our frac automation, as soon as we see a spike in pressure on any of that, we can kill the stage, flush, and shut it down and move on, because the last thing we want to do is open up a channel to that SWD. And so if we can minimize the impact of any communication with those SWDs, then we're in a spot where, like, hey, does this change that bench from being statistical to being repeatable? And now this operator can go in and delineate the entire third bone spring and start adding locations, because they need to prove it up. And there's an extremely valuable resource. And if the only issue with that resource is staying out of the disposals, then how do we manage that and how do we treat that? And that's something that I don't think you can do effectively with manual operation of your equipment. And so this is a phenomenal use case that not just improves the individual well results, but it actually helps them delineate the entire field.
All right. Well, that's interesting. Now, I do want to. We've hit on technology. I kind of want to hit the macro stuff now with you a little bit to finish it off. So, I'm not going to ask you for rig count or where you think prices are going. But all right, just on a general feel, how are you thinking about 2026 so far? Activity levels, for you guys.
Yeah, I think excluding geopolitical events.
Well, that's literally the hardest thing to predict. So I'll let you off on that one.
I think we're in a stable environment. I think that the industry is going to coast and for a little bit. But once we start getting into the second half of 2026, I think it's going to get pretty interesting. Everybody seems to talk about activity levels based on a WTI threshold.
Right.
But I haven't heard a lot of people really talk about Waha. And so in the second half of this year, we're going to start seeing more pipelines come on. And by the end of 2026, there's going to be 6 BCF of takeaway capacity added. And like I know that there's a lot of gas coming out of the Permian. But there's not 6 BCF.
That's a lot. That's
extra capacity.
Right.
And you're looking at to fill those pipes up, you would have to see anywhere from a 2 to 3 million barrel a day increase on the oil side to deliver that kind of volume of gas. And so I think there's going to be a really healthy period for a few years at least where Waha actually starts trading closer to being in parity with Henry Hub.
Yep.
And it's based on recent pricing from Waha, it would end up being about an $8 swing to your realized price per barrel. And so right now the realized price per barrel in the Permian is about 37 to 38 bucks.
Yep.
And so you'd be looking at in the second half this going to about 45.
Yeah. That's not bad.
And so the amount of cash flow that operators in the Permian, will realize is substantially better. It's like a lot higher. To see that kind of a swing on the realized price, I think that the second half you're going to start seeing a lot more activity coming on, and stay there for a while.
All right. Well, because the activity levels have only got, based on the historical way of thinking about activity, has just gone this way. So it's nice to see that there might be it might go in a different direction.
That as well as the type of inventory that it opens up.
Right.
Because there's a lot of inventory that's a little too gassy.
Yep.
And so
with no takeaway capacity.
With no takeaway
capacity.
capacity.
You don't touch that.
So they're not touching it. And so the amount of inventory that's economic at this point is limited, and that's why you see the activity levels that we see. But once those pipes come on, it's going to open up a lot of inventory that becomes economic, and the activity levels are going to be, I think it's going to get pretty exciting on the service side.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're just about up on time. But Matt, thanks for coming on. Thanks for being here with us, and hopefully we'll do it again either next year or later this year.
Definitely. And maybe next year we'll be talking about a lot more of the details, the features, and really expanding on it to where it won't be as much of an introduction into Machina.
Right. Well, hopefully at that point we can show some real case studies where you guys have used it. We can talk about and how operators are seeing it and benefiting from it.
Yeah, if we do it right, everybody's going to be talking about Machina and wondering who ProFrac is.
I don't know. I think they'll know who you guys are. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Matt.
Thank you.